Always trying to get these last few bits together. Hey, Andre, how you doing, sweetie? Good seeing you. Oh, boy.
On their identities. The order also authorized state law enforcement agencies to detain vehicles reasonably believed to be transporting undocumented
here so I can have my clock. Are we up at 5:45 after? Is that it?
The immigration issue to score political points. I'm Jennifer
Postmate, we go up at what time?
Adults have now had at least.
We should be starting at around 6:05:45.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yep.
I was just told that it was 06, and you know those 15 seconds matter.
No, I gotcha.
Okay.
I'll let you know if we're a little off or a little before or after that time, but yeah, that's the time I have written down.
Very good.
20 Chicago traffic update.
With delays from 43rd Street to Roosevelt. 18 minutes already from 95th to downtown at around 11. If you're Ford Freeway, inbound delays start around 111. 13 minutes to 8094 Spurge. Inbound Stevenson ramp, the inbound ride is back. The outbound Stevenson is open at the ride and had been closed earlier for shooting investigation. The fall boat run season opens later this morning. Bridge lifts start around 9:30 at Ensemble Lakeshore Drive and head west. The boat run season runs through November 13th. And accordingly, congestion in the downtown area. That's right. I'm Telemonte.
Remember when you get to work to hop over to WCPT820.com or the TuneIn Radio app and stream the stuff.
All right. Okay. One last thing. How about that?
Where facts matter.
Oh, thank you very, very much.
50-year-old male, maybe a bit porky.
Okay, we have a 55 seconds.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep.
And my
Big Lou at 800
copier will be done by that.
7516.
Okay,
Big Lou will
it's done
find
now.
a term
Great.
life policy for you, even if you have type 2 diabetes,
Stop.
are overweight, or have high blood pressure.
Okay, everybody, we're going to be talking about R. Kelly today.
People like you who think they can't afford term life insurance. To buy $1 million.
You know, Vicki, do you think we should talk about the groundbreaking at the library sometime? I didn't realize that there was so much unrest about the gentrification of the neighborhood.
20 seconds.
Big Lou will answer your call and work to fit you term life policy.
Think about it and let me know.
Okay.
Because there were some protests yesterday.
5 seconds.
Yeah.
I would expect it.
Yeah, because people, you know, the neighborhood does not look the same. It looks like, you know.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
You got the power. You got the power. You got the power. You got the power. Down in your soul.
Hey, everybody, welcome. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Trying something a little different this morning, the power of hope. Oh, yes, we have to keep that alive. Oh, did I just say that? I'm Santita Jackson. It's Wednesday, September 29th, 2021. It's a joy to be with you today on the Santita Jackson Show, coming to you from the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 radio in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and WCPT 820 here in Chicago. I want to hear your voices today. I want to hear your thoughts about R. Kelly. We're going to be talking about that at 7. And we're going to be talking about the Democrats at 6:30. Should the progressives hold the line? Should the progressives hold the line? They are digging in their heels in ways that I've never seen them do before. And I'm really, really glad to see them do it. They are holding on. They are daring these moderates to cross their line. Remember, in the House of Representatives, the Democrats represent more than 4 million more persons than the Republicans do. And in the Senate, it's even more stark. The 50 Democratic senators represent 41 million more persons than the Republicans do. So they really are on a mandate, and I think that they're being obedient to their constituency. So we've got to talk about that today. What should the Democrats do? Should they hold the line? Of course, the latest and the greatest on COVID-19. LeBron James has said that he has been vaccinated, but he's getting pushback from the media because he will not encourage other people to do the same. Do you think that's correct? Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. And if you want to text me there, GWC Injury Lawyers gives you the opportunity to do that. Meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. And of course, my YouTube channel, The Santita Jackson Show. So I want you to meet up with Andre and Carol and Dave Dowling and Linda and Louie Chewy and Keith Fluid, my boy up in New York, Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia, Joyce and A. King from Memphis, from Push in Memphis, and so many of you, Jewel and Joyce and Vicky, and on and on and on. And Gary Craig, how you doing? Sending you much love, everybody, this morning. Like and share, like and share, like and share, like and share. Let's get to some of these headlines so we can get some good news from Pastor Vicki Johnson, everybody. Today is going to be a beautiful day in Chicago. A high of 76 degrees, mostly sunny. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 86 degrees, partly cloudy. The Dow closed down, 569 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed down 423 points. The S&P 500 closed down 90 points. The Tigers, well, they fell to the Twins. The Twins 3, the Tigers 2, and the White Sox 7-1 over Cincinnati. All right. Whoo, baseball. We're going into playoffs and then the World Series. I just love this time of year because then the NBA starts. It's wonderful. Democratic factions, according to this CNN report, are splintering as party leaders desperately try to keep President Biden's legislative agenda, for which you voted, on track, everybody. Some progressives are revolting over Speaker Nancy Pelosi's plan to hold a vote tomorrow on a roughly $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill before striking a deal on a multi-trillion-dollar spending package expanding the social safety net. The infrastructure bill is a priority for moderate Democrats, while the spending package, known as the Build Back Better Act, is championed by progressives. What do you think is going to happen, everybody? What do you think is going to happen? What do you think should happen? Call me or text me. I want to hear your voices, though, at 773-763-9278, 763-763-9278. The Delta variant surge could be the last major wave of infection in the U.S. That the U.S. sees, one expert says, but only if people protect themselves in the treacherous fall and winter months to come. That's why we've had Dr. Deborah Furholden every day and Dr. Shanita Knighton as much as we can so that you can know how to protect yourself as we are moving into the season that's supposed to be treacherous, where we're going to have COVID-19 meet the flu season, while more and more people are walking around unmasked, everybody, unmasked. What do you think about that? What about this news? 131 federal judges broke the law by hearing cases where they had a financial interest. Oh, yeah. This is reported by the Wall Street Journal. Their investigation found that judges had improperly failed to disqualify themselves from 685 court cases around the nation since 2010. The jurists were appointed by nearly every president from Lyndon Johnson to Donald Trump. About 2/3 of the federal district judges disclosed holdings of individual stocks, and nearly one of every five who did heard at least one case involving those stocks. What do you think about that, everybody? What do you think about that? Do you think that's fair? Should they hold on to their seats? What do you think about that? Call me, text me, 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. I mean, we're seeing the same kind of problem on the Fed, because now it turns out that they were dealing with themselves too. They were regulating stocks that they were holding. How does that work, everybody? Well, the ground was broken, everybody, on the Obama Center. Remember, it's not a library. It is a center. They are coming up with a new way to have a presidential library. His library, this center will hold his papers digitally, but it will not be a formal library as we have known presidential libraries. It was a very, very small gathering, according to press reports, where you had the governor, you had the mayor, and just a few people, and you did have some protesters, but they were behind the barricades. But they are moving forward. They have waited several years to break ground on the Obama Center, and it's now going to cost more than $800 million. Wow. Wow, after 5 years of waiting, everybody, the Obama Center is on its way. And let's see, Biden's vax mandate could cost companies $70 to $700,000. And guess what? Now the Vatican is ordering all employees to get the vaccine or submit to testing. What do you think about that? They're getting involved. In the meantime, more and more people are leaving their jobs. Houston Methodist, one of the biggest hospitals in that part of the country, lost 153 workers who refused the coronavirus vaccine. The North Carolina hospital system fired about 175 workers in one of the largest ever mass terminations due to this vaccine mandate. What's going to happen, everybody? What's going to happen? How is this all going to work out? Well, we're going to see as we go forward. But we're going to get some good news. We're going to get some good news from Pastor Vicki Johnson, because heaven knows we need it. Every time I go to bed and wake up, I got something new coming at me. I'm just trying to figure out how to hold it all together. Of course, you're the pastor of the St. Thomas Lutheran Church on 80th and Jeffrey from 11:45 to 12:15 every Sunday. She has a half hour of power. That's right. And they're socially distanced and they're doing it safely. So thank goodness for that. It's wonderful to hear your voice this morning.
And it is always great to hear your voice, Santita. What a blessing it is to be here today.
Amen.
And so, is there good news? Yes, there is good news. One of your morning stars, Sandra, sent me a poem she wrote that was inspired by an unknown author that said, "Everyone you meet is fighting a battle that you know not of. Be kind always." Isn't that something? I know that we are fighting the battle of this pandemic, COVID-19, by wearing masks, washing and sanitizing our hands, getting vaccinated, and following the science. Beyond this great collective battle we are fighting, everyone is fighting a personal battle. It might be a health battle of a recent diagnosis, a terminal illness, or the struggle of regulating blood pressure or blood sugar. It could be a battle with weight, trying to get within a healthy range, whether it is to lose some pounds or to gain some. It might be a financial battle, struggling to make ends meet, or with paying taxes. The battle could be relational with a mate, family member, neighbor, or friend. It could be a battle with violence, domestic or verbal abuse. There might be a mental health battle with depression, suicidal ideations, or struggles with your past. Having lived through seeing over 600,000 people die in the past 18 months or so from COVID-19 or related issues, and listen, some of this 600 plus thousand are names that we know and people that we know. They are not just numbers. The battle could well be grief and loneliness. The battle might be spiritual in your relationship with God, your higher power, or yourself. We are all in a battle. There may not be evidence of it because, we walk around trying to be the perfect people that the Walls, which is a family singing group, they mention it in their song, "This Song Is For You," when in fact we are all far from perfect. Ephesians, the 4th chapter and the 32nd verse, encourages us to be kind to one another and tender-hearted. That is to say, Be compassionate, be warm, be caring, and sympathetic. Well, some might say, that is not my nature. Well, at least in the words of Bobby Brown, don't be cruel. Since we are aware that everyone is in some type of battle, all I ask of your stars and friends today, Santita, is to be kind. If you will do this, and I'm sure you will, then to me, that's good news.
Let me ask you this, because that really resonates with me this morning. Have you seen, are we becoming more cruel, or has the cruelty been there all along?
More self-absorbed.
Hmm.
And so we do not think about caring for other people. It's all about me.com. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that we have become more cruel. And it's because of the various means that help us to just look at ourselves. Our social media, you know, we're constantly trying to see what other people are thinking of us and not thinking about what we are saying and doing to other people. We've got to be kind.
We have become much more self-absorbed and much more self-righteous.
Mm-hmm.
And it just it keeps on going, and you just see it in these wars, these health wars. And that, our brother Jonathan, he's so wise. He said something to me yesterday. He said, "Look, with the vaccines, you can't win because now it's not about facts; it's about feelings." I said, "That's true." I said, "So
Very true.
all you can do is bless people and move on because it's everybody's going to have the last word on this thing, and it's we're really gonna have to grow. I think we're being challenged at this time, and so I want to thank you for that because you took me back to 1988. Boom! Don't be cruel. What? Yes. Oh, that's one of my favorite albums of all time. But I'm not alone. It was one of the biggest selling albums in history. Please, Bobby Brown's still living off that because that was a great CD. What?
And it definitely was.
From start to finish, girl. Don't get me started. Tenderoni, what? All of it. All of it. Love it. Yes. Wait a minute.
Let me reel you back in. Come on.
Okay,
come on.
but you know what? It took me back to the campaign plane because our father was running for president at the time, but my brothers had boom boxes. Remember those? They would turn that on the campaign plane, and they would light the campaign plane up. They were like, "You never run for president like this before." Boom.
Right.
Don't be cruel. Come on, we did it our way. How about that? I'm not going to be anything other than me. Thank you, Sammy Davis. I got to be me. Love you so much, Pastor Vicki Johnson, everybody. The St. Thomas Lutheran Church here in Chicago at 80th and Jeffrey. Get on over there. You all are going over there, and we're so glad. It's from 11:45 to 12:15. Socially distanced. People are sitting outside, and you know what? Anyone who knows Pastor Johnson knows that she is Miss Hospital Corners. So it's going to be done correctly. You know we love you. Come on.
Amen.
Come on now. Come on. I've known you a long time. So God bless you. Thank you so much for that. Don't be cruel, everybody. Don't be cruel. Let's be kind. Let's be kind. Dr. Deborah Verholden, epidemiologist, Associate Dean of Public Health at Michigan State University. We're getting more and more news about vaccine mandates and all of that. Even now the Vatican has mandated uh, that the employees be vaccinated or they submit to testing. Okay, and now LeBron James has said that yes, I've been vaccinated because he's been pressed about that, and he admitted that he'd been hesitant. Uh, but the media kept trying to push him to encourage others, and he refused to do that. Let me ask you this. Where are we in the COVID-19 fight? Let's just, before you go, because we're going to have a short segment today, where are we here? Are the numbers going up? Are they going down? And what should we be doing? Because it just, It just seems like there's still a lot. It seems like there's a lot more electricity in the air about COVID-19 than it was last year. You know.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I remember, oh, wow, it's been so long. I would have never believed when we started in these conversations that we'd still be in these conversations and be where we are in the pandemic. Because I remember saying sometime last year, it was the summertime, and people were kind of getting that COVID fatigue. That's where we started to talk about it. So people were, kind of not honoring the kind of protocols, antsy to get out, having parties and things like that. And I remember saying, we are still in the middle of this thing, and we can't take our foot off the gas.
Yeah.
And after about 2 months, it was one of the, few times, because I, like many others, I've really been humbled in this pandemic and do my very best to speak from fact, but also to be honest, especially if I make a mistake. And I actually acknowledge that I made a mistake by saying we were in the middle of it. Because I said the middle would imply that I somehow have a sense of the beginning and the end, and so that I could create this point called the middle. And I said, I can't say that we're in the middle. This might just be the beginning. And I remember saying that at the end of that summer, after I had said we're in the middle of this thing. And I didn't, I wasn't trying to be precise saying this is exactly the midpoint, but in my world, we were sort of, hitting that crescendo. And then now that we had learned so much, we were going to be able to bring things down. So if you ask me now where we are in this pandemic, all I can tell you is we are still in the thick of it. In some places, like where I am, we have numbers right now that mirror where we were at the height of the pandemic. That is where we are right now in my county in Michigan. We're right back where we started from. And that is in the midst of the vaccine. That's in the midst of, all of this money that's been spent. Our vaccination rates in Michigan and in my county are lower than they are nationally. We're just over 50% of our population has received at least one dose, and just under 50% have gotten both doses. So we lag behind. I think a lot of that has to do with, sort of politics and people not getting the vaccine and also not masking as a political statement. So we're very much in the throes and in the thick of it. Here's my real concern is that if we stay the way that we are, and we're learning about this virus and why it has mutated so quickly, there are thousands. Somebody asked how many variants are there. There are thousands of COVID variants. Thousands. The virus that causes COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2, has thousands of variants. The World Health Organization has said 4 of them we really need to monitor. 4 of them are variants of concern, and that includes Delta, the Delta variant. But if things continue the way that they are, I don't exactly know where the end is. I don't, and I don't know what we might declare the end would be. In a race, it's easy. There's a finish line. There's a certain amount of distance you've got to go. And when you get to that point, there's a finish line and you run across it. What are we going to call the end for this when we can get spread down to a certain point? The end for us with COVID, I'm telling you, will not be disease eradication. That will not be when we declare, the race complete or when we declare victory. It'll be some point short of that. What that point is remains to be seen. But yeah, we are just in the thick of it. That's the only thing I think anyone could say. We are in the thick of it.
Well, just very quickly, excuse me, I have about 90 seconds. Dr. Fauci yesterday was saying he drilled down on testing, on the need for continuing to test for COVID-19. What do you think about that?
Yeah, testing is always, see, this is a funny thing. The things that we already know, those things need to remain in place. This is the problem that we had. We had things that we knew. We had things that worked. And as soon as the vaccine came, we stopped doing all those things. The vaccine came out and a lot of communities reduced their testing. The vaccine came out and people were fast to lift those mask mandates. People were fast to go back to reopening. People were quick to
relax the requirements around density for indoor and outdoor events. The things, remember, go back to my Swiss cheese model, that those multiple layers improve success. All those other layers that we had in place that had us have some success in the pandemic, we started to take those things away. Testing is critical because the whole point in testing is to get somebody identified as early as possible so they can get out of the mix and don't infect other people. And now we're realizing you need to be tested independent of whether or not you've been vaccinated. You need to be tested as a function of your exposure. Testing has zero to do with who's been vaccinated or not. It has everything to do with how out and about in the world are you, and have you been exposed?
Dr. Deborah
So if you're
Holden,
going to work every day, you need to be tested once a week. If you go to work every day, you need to be tested once a week, whether or not you're vaccinated.
40 seconds.
Dr. Deborah Holden, everybody. Continue to get tested. What's the better test? I have 10 seconds. Should you get the PCR test, the antigen test, or is the quick test, will that suffice?
Any of them will suffice. And we can talk a little bit more about it tomorrow because depending on where you are in your exposure, some perform better than others. Any of them will do, honestly.
We need to walk through that tomorrow. We need to walk through that.
I'd be happy to do it.
Okay, let's do that. And we're going to do that for a longer period of time tomorrow because we need to do that. Because if you're self-testing, you need to know how to do it properly too, Dr. Deborah Holden. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Deborah Holden, epidemiologist, everybody. Michigan State University, the Associate Dean for Public Health at their medical school. We're sending you much love, everybody. Let's talk about the Democrats. The progressives are holding the line on moderates. And, they actually represent more people. We'll talk about that on the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Ooh, Dr. Deborah Holden.
WCPT Willow Springs is powered by ComEd. Lower your energy bills and reduce your carbon
I will call you later. I have had a moment. Ooh,
This is Joan Esposito, and here at WCPT, we love
had a
pets.
moment.
So much that we're
You're still doing the show from home, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Speaking of which, right? So, yes.
Look, I just had that thought. I'm like, are you back in that radio station every day? When's the last time you've been tested?
No. You know what? And I get tested, regularly. When I say frequently, because I want to see my mom.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure, even though I self-isolate, every time I go someplace in public, I go get tested. Me, yes, I am wearing triple masks.
Ms. Myers on the line.
I know it's a lot. I got it. But I just, girl, watching my parents, both, I mean, you know that because I called you, and we're on Facebook Live now. It was just when my brother said, Mom has COVID-19 and Dad does too.
Sponsored by Age of Learning.
It's like your whole world is shook and your heart just sinks. It's just like, whew.
And it's one of those scary moments because you got to think of all the conversations that you've had and all of the knowledge and insight that you've tried to bring forward.
Oh, yeah.
To try to arm people with what they needed, to be healthy and well and thrive in this pandemic, and to then have that hit so close to home. And your parents are of age. Your dad is 75.
No, he will be 80 in another week and a half. My mother's 77.
80.
He'll be 80 on October 8th.
Dwight McKee and Lakeisha Myers are on the line.
Yeah, he'll be 80.
Yeah, I spent the weekend with my aunt and uncle who just turned 65. They're twins. And my other aunt who turned 77. She turned 77 on Saturday. And I just, so I was very safe leading up to that. And I just thought, man, I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I was the one who brought this to.
Are you kidding me?
One of my loved ones.
Mm-hmm. That's why I get tested. This center knows me well now because I take both tests. I take the rapid test and the antigen test. Let me know when I'm walking out the door where I am. But they get it to me within a day. So I'm going to let you go because we're going to go into politics. Unless you want to talk with us about, because...
No. I'm going to the office today. I will listen in, though. I'm going to listen from Facebook.
You should, because you know what? Also think about the infrastructure bills because that's health related. So look into that because I want you to participate in these conversations as well. Okay.
Hey, Nana.
That's D White.
How you doing, Nana?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Dwight?
Dwight, we call her Grandma.
55 seconds.
That's the old term for grandma. He's like Nana. She'll take it though. And this child, Dwight, looks just like her. India looks just like her.
Really?
Oh my gosh. Her India looks like her mama, who looks like Dr. Verholden. State Representative Myers, how you doing?
I'm texting.
25 seconds.
Good morning, everyone.
Send him that picture. It's amazing. I posted it. Dwight doesn't do social media. Okay.
15 seconds.
Just let you know that.
He's too cool for school. He don't need that.
And he's paranoid. Movement.
5 seconds.
Love you, girl. Thank you so much.
All right.
Paranoia.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
You got the power. You got the power. You got the power. Down in your soul is the power.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Wednesday, September 29th, 2021. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, WCPT, based here in Chicago, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. And I want you to meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson and Friends page and on my YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show. Please, everybody, like and subscribe on that channel. I need your support there, and I need your support here. So everybody like and share. We're also on WCPT 820's Facebook page. Like and share. And thank you all. Everybody continues to ask about my parents. They are getting stronger every day. So thank you so much. Bless your hearts. The prayers of the righteous have availeth much. And whatever your faith commitment, whether you have one or not, I just want to thank you for all of the wonderful, wonderful energy that you've sent our parents' way. I mean, we can see all of that has made such a difference. People from all over the world. And I just want to thank my morning stars in particular. Whether you are on Facebook or just out there in Radio Land, I want to thank you for being so kind to us. Everybody, we've had David Daly, the New York Times bestselling author, on this show. He's a family member here. He's here all the time. And I always ask him to repeat these numbers because they really are very important. Even though we have like a little bit of a majority in the U.S. House of Representatives, Democrats do, guess what? The Democrats represent more than 4 million more persons than the Republicans. And that's in the lower house. But in the upper house, in the upper chamber, the U.S. Senate, the numbers are even more stunning. 50-50 split, right? 50 Democrats, 50 Republicans. The 50 Democrats represent 41.5 million more persons. 41.5 million more persons than the Republicans do. And yet we have two moderate Democrats who are holding back this infrastructure bill, which is really, we've not seen anything as substantial. We have not seen as substantial a contribution to the social safety net since LBJ, something that we desperately need right now. And so Senator Sanders is demanding that House Democrats vote down the bipartisan bill and don't play with them. And some people showed up and they told Nancy Pelosi, we are not bluffing. Do not play with us. We need you to get out here and push back on these moderates. They're not even Democrats, they're corporatocrats. And we just need to just call them what they are. Now more and more progressives are becoming more and more vocal about what we need, not what we want, what we need. We won this election by more than 80 million votes. And the Sunrise Movement, a group of young activists, are warning Speaker Pelosi of betrayal if she bends toward the corporate Democrats. And so I want to know what you think. What should happen? People, if you listen to the media, they keep saying that the corporate Democrats, the progressive Democrats are trying to upend Biden's agenda. No, they're not. They're trying to hold him accountable to it so we can win something in 2022. So, I said, let me get some people who really do understand politics on here to break it down. It's important to go to Washington, but I think it's important to come into the heartland where we live so that we can find out what people are seeing, thinking, feeling as we're watching this passion play, if you will, play out in Washington, D.C. Wisconsin State Representative Lakeisha Myers. Lakeisha Myers is with us, of course, Dr. D, Dwight McKee. Let me start with you, State Representative Myers. What are you seeing in Washington right now? I mean, because it seems to me that progressive Democrats are the ones who are being blamed if we don't cave to moderates. And moderates don't represent the number of people. The sheer numbers are not on their side, but somehow we've been gerrymandered out of power. So help me with this.
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me. I will say that I do think you are absolutely spot on with the fact that progressives are trying to hold the president accountable and basically hold the party accountable. But you mentioned two people in the beginning, and that would be, Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema, who I think are causing more problems and doing more harm than they are doing good. So the bullying, if you will, should be generated towards those two, because that's where we have the razor thin majority. And also the ability to, if we get them in line, we will be able to pass these two bills in tandem with each other. The progressives are really hammering toward making sure that we have paid family leave and some other items, like you said, that will underscore the social safety net. However, I'm a Nancy Pelosi fan. I will say that. I agree that she is good at her job as far as whipping votes and process. This is a showdown that I'm anxious to see what happens. I'm anxious to see what happens here. I don't want us to, lose the war despite a battle. I think that this can be done two ways. You can pass them in tandem, but if she can't get that done, you do have to have infrastructure. We talked about that yesterday with plumbing, poverty. Mm-hmm. So making sure that you at least have part of your agenda passed shows a sign of progress as well. So I'm a little conflicted on the process in which we need to get that done. I don't think she should go wholly against the progressive wing of the party as far as membership is concerned. But I think it's a tantamount to process and trying to whip the votes in the Senate that she needs to get things passed. So I'm interested to see how this process works out.
Well, she is great at what she does, and she's the most prodigious fundraiser in the Democratic Party. So, I mean, there are reasons that she is the speaker. That having been said, you can still press her, I think. Doesn't mean that you don't like her. It's just politics. Politics, this better than anyone because you've worked on the federal level. You've worked in Congress. It is about pressure. You apply pressure.
About pressure. And right now we're under pressure to get some things passed.
Yeah.
So I'm still waiting on the Voting Rights Act, HR 40, to get those things passed. So I'm anxiously looking at, okay, we got a list. And here we are. It is, almost October 2021. I'm looking to see when are we going to get Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema in line and already, jump out there with the primary against them because they need to go. That's where I am. They need to go.
Oof. Dwight McKee, what are your thoughts?
What I think the greater question is, how come they haven't gone? Is that they obviously playing a role in behalf of the president who backs them up, who's giving them that kind of leadway. It's his decision whether or not to take a different approach to reconciliation and to filibuster. And for some reason, he's committed to the old way, even though it's not working. It seems to me, and I've said it before, that he's using Joe Manchin as an excuse because they play to the same crowd. If he really wanted reform, if the Democrats really wanted reform, then they would be applying appropriate pressure on these guys, guys who are resisting the policies that basically all of them promised the public that they would put into play. They would be dealing with them, as opposed to trying to make progressives the enemy. The progressives who is the new heart of the party and is the ones that really delivered the vote that put them in office. In many ways, I think moderate Democrat is an oxymoron in his day and time. You might as well be a practicing Republican. When Trump wants something done, he uses the bully pulpit. He used the strength of the office to demand that his will be done. Even until this day, out of office, he uses his status as a bully pulpit. Biden is the president, and he's still looking for moderation and reconciliation. It's very confusing, unless he's hiding behind your back.
Let me go to Travis from Maywood. Travis, what's on?
Good morning, great show.
Thank you.
As always.
Thank you, Travis.
I'm over here studying this stuff, and it's time for the Democrats in Washington to wake up and realize that they got just as much kahunas as the Republicans. How are you going to stand there and let Mitch McConnell tell you he's going to block you from doing anything that's possible for this country, and then you sit back and say, oh, I can't do nothing? Please. The Republicans will get rid of the filibuster anytime they need to get their point across. And while Joe Biden is sitting back, playing with his thumb, makes no sense. And then let me bring it home to our state, Illinois. We need our Democrats down in Springfield to support giving our people property tax relief in this state. If we don't fix the property tax system, we won't have folks in this state.
Amen to that. It's getting very expensive here. I know a lot of people are moving out of state. They're shifting their main residence if they're able to do that. They are getting out of here because it's just, the rent is just too high. Remember that candidate in New York City? I mean, it's a lot. I mean, Lakeisha, it is. We're talking with Wisconsin State Representative Lakeisha Myers, who also works for Congressman Danny Davis. I mean, so she understands state politics, federal politics. She's a teacher, so she understands a whole lot just about how we live from day to day. Dwight McKee, noted sociologist, who's with us. I want to hear your voices today. 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. Should the Democrats who are progressive hold the line? Bernie Sanders says, don't you move. House Dems need to stay right where you are and get these bills voted on jointly. Don't let the Republicans and the corporocrats, if you will, don't let them separate these bills out because we'll never get anything done. I mean, look, State Representative Myers, Senators Sinema and Manchin will not even tell the president what they're looking for. They will not give him a top line number. $3.5 trillion won't work. They have no counter. In the meantime, what's in this infrastructure bill? I mean, you've got more incentives for health care, and what else? And child care. Women took a real hit in this pandemic because women had to leave the workforce to go care for their children.
Exactly, and they're still suffering. They've not rebounded yet, even with schools opening. As a school administrator, I had a staff member that had to take days off yesterday because her son contracted COVID, and she is taking care of him.
At school?
So, and this is not going to end when you have, we're not out of the woods yet as far as COVID is concerned. And one of the things that experiencing COVID did was rip the Band-Aid off so you can see everything that was festering underneath. Whether it was issues with infrastructure, from roads, bridges, access to healthcare, quality healthcare and medication, issues that we already knew we had as far as race were concerned and race-based policies that we had in this country. There are just so many things that we have the opportunity to fix because we have the majority. I'm with Mr. McKee wholeheartedly. It's time to wield the big stick. It's time to not play around. It's time to go in like gangbusters and do what we need to do because he's right. Exactly right. If the shoe was on the other foot, we already know what would happen. We saw what did happen.
Yes.
So there's no need for us to try to play nice. And I think that is one of the frustrating parts as far as I'm concerned about having Joe Biden as president, is that he came from a different era when politics was a respectable game. We have since left that time.
Wait. Stop. It's always been stop, girl. Stop. It's always been a mess.
What?
He is from the right wing of the party.
Not as much of a mess as it is now.
But girl, this stuff ain't never been clean. It's not clean. It's not.
Absolutely.
It's not.
And that's why I'm trying to understand.
No, and we don't play nice. We play coward. We play games.
Absolutely.
We're not playing nice. The thing is, we're playing around. In the meantime, the constituents who outnumber those Republican constituents, and even they are struggling too. They're out here struggling. Mm-hmm. You're in Milwaukee.
Exactly. Look at Joe Manchin's district,
his state.
West Virginia is like, okay.
Next to Mississippi, the most heavily subsidized state in the United States.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Come on. So, there's something else going on here because I see corporate Democrats and Republicans doing corporations bidding. That's what they're doing. In the meantime, Populists won this election. State Representative Myers, they won. But we're acting only Pramila Jayapal and Ro Khanna and Barbara Lee and always Aunt Maxine and on and on. They're the only ones who are acting like, hey, we won this thing. Let's do this. And I can only imagine all of the moving parts that Nancy Pelosi's got to work with. But if she wants the Democrats to win in 2022, she better do something. And more than that, the president needs to do something. They've got to. This is not working.
I was always taught scared money don't make no money.
How about
that's
that?
What we are now. We got to do it.
Come on. Tell me. So you call me, everybody. 773-763-9278. 773-763. WCPT. Dwight, what are we looking at? How do we move the needle on this? Or can we?
It has to be pressure from the disenfranchised and the neglected in the party. It's the politicians right now are playing to the corporate interests. Mm. They're funded by the Democrats. Many Democrats are funded by the same people as Republicans. Mm-hmm. And so Joe Manchin is trying to protect the guys that own the coal mines in Virginia. He's not so worried about the people who have no electricity or no jobs or no daycare in Virginia because that's not who's funding him. He's funded by the coal mine interest there and the corporate interest, as is Biden. Biden and Obama was funded by Wall Street. And so they have an incentive to protect that interest, even though they talk to us as if they represent us. Don't get swept up in the hype. That's not real. If it was real, they'd be fighting for us. The Lord said, "Where your heart is, where your heart is where your treasure is, and where your treasure is where your heart is." And so his heart is he's fighting for the people who fund him, as are all these moderate, quote unquote, Democrats who, under the guise of we want to be one united country, we love each other. We need to work this out, knowing that the Republicans are going to play hardball, is not going to budge, and it gives them a pretext to say, well, at least we tried. Let's wait another 8 years, and then we'll try and try again. At least we tried. We did our best, y'all. They just wouldn't budge. No, they're not serious. Biden is not serious. It's a game people play.
When your constituents come to you, because you're on the front line, right? I mean, people see you, State Representative Myers. They need so much. I mean, health care. Our elders need to be able to get dental care. We need to be able to negotiate. Our government should be able to negotiate with big pharma so they can get their hands out of the cookie jar. They're just making money hand over fist, from the vaccines to everything. They just make money all the time. And we're the ones who are struggling. We can't pull together $400 for an emergency room visit in a pandemic. What do you think we need to do moving forward?
I really think, Dwight was right when he talked about the people having to rise up and have a better voice. Because one of the things, even though you may be funded by somebody else, a lot of times those people aren't the ones who can vote for you, because they could be corporate interests that come from out of your state. So the message has to resonate with people who have the ability to move your behind out of office. And that's just where I think this has to go. Making sure that we do the work as individuals who know and are educated on certain subjects, and making sure that we have folks that are involved and pressing their legislators. I always tell people, if I get 5 phone calls about the same thing, I'm starting to perk up and pay attention, because something is happening, and I don't need to miss what's happening. So, it may be burdensome to folks. I understand that. But making sure that you make those calls, send those emails, shut down the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives switchboard, it has been done before. And the result has been in the people's favor before. But they're not scared enough yet. So, because it's like, oh, well, I haven't really heard a lot from my constituents. Making sure that you actually make your voice heard. That's where I am. And making sure that folks actually do that. Write the letters, make the calls. If you're in the local areas of any district offices, go there, sit there, have a sit-in. Make sure that you make a spectacle of the situation so that you can draw attention to what it is that the people actually want.
And you know how this works, because you and I both worked in Congress. Every phone call means X number of constituents. That's why I encourage you also to call the media outlets, because you represent X number of listeners or viewers. And the fact is, after 2008, when we had the collapse and when we were going to fund Goldman Sachs, when they went with that 2.5 page letter demanding that if you don't do it, we're going to shut down the economy over the weekend. Americans were so outraged. They called the Congress. They shut down the system. There were so many calls. And you know what they did by Monday? Because my brother was still in Congress at the time. They changed the system. So only so many calls can get through. You ought to be outraged by that, everybody. You ought to be outraged, and you need to do something about it. So, I've got 1 minute. It belongs to you. State Representative Myers, give us some marching orders.
The marching orders are simple. Use your feet, use your phone, use your text, use your email, but make sure that you contact your member. Make sure that they know which side you are on and that you can elect or remove them, and remind them of that fact. Continue to do what it is that we need to do as a collective. We are stronger together than we are separate.
Amen to that. Dwight, 1 minute, literally. I'm up against the clock. What should we do?
Just remember this built the system around we the people. It only works if we the people are involved. If we the people are on the sideline, the system does not work. The people have to be involved. The people have to fight. The people have to fight for their own interests. If they're waiting for those who benefit off of their poverty or benefit off their oppression to solve the problems, we'll be waiting another 400 years. We, the people, have to fight, fight, fight.
That's the way the government has been constructed, everybody. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. You know, Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman, and you know, we all know her. God rest her soul. She said it works when you work it. This government works when you work it. You've got to get involved. Otherwise, you can have a monarchy, everybody. We have a constitutional republic, which means you've got to get involved. You must call 202-224-3121. 202-224-3121. Call your representatives and call the progressives and tell them to hold the line. That will encourage them. You will not believe how that will make them feel. But have them hold the line. Because what's in that $3.5 trillion package and that $1 trillion package, but particularly the $3.5 trillion, it's for you. It is your health care. It is your child care. It is Wi-Fi for you and your family. Our children were going out, waiting outside of schools in the wintertime because they didn't have Wi-Fi at home, but they had a desire to learn. No, 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 no. That has to end, and it can end right now. But you must make these people do it. Don't rely on them to do something for you. Make them do it because you demand that they do it. Demand that they do the right thing for you. Let's talk about R. Kelly, everybody, on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in just a minute. Thank you so much. You all are the best. You know, we're talking about R. Kelly. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Boy.
Well, you know, there's a lot to it. And I think we're going to see much more. You know, because Congressman Davis was talking about redemption. People, of course, got very angry with him about that. And, you know, I heard him. You know, maybe he shouldn't have said that at that time. But of course, you know, people want to see folks redeemed, you know, and I can appreciate that. And I think that I just want to know how it is that he was charged on RICO statutes. That doesn't quite.
Because they look at the fact that he had enablers around him, so it was like he was operating a criminal organization. And RICO is one of the most flexible laws, set of laws that you can have. Mm-hmm. And that's how they usually bring people down. I think that's how Donald Trump is going to end up going down. Is more than likely behind some RICO situation.
Yeah, if they decide it, you know, they only take people down when they want to. And quite frankly, I don't think they want to do that. Being taken down is a completely political act. All these unconvicted felons we got walking around out here and up on the Hill, girl, get out here. And cycling in and out of the Oval Office. The more that I see this thing, it's all politics. Some people get taken out, other people get preserved. So,
very true.
I'm so over that. I'm over that. I am. I mean, Donald Trump has done what other people do. As he said to you, I paid no taxes because that's the way the tax code is written, and it's true. Them that's got shall get. Next, change the tax code. I mean, next. That's all you need to do. And then he won't take advantage of it. You need to ask why Deutsche Bank and all these American banks gave him like $1 billion line of credit. They just gave him money. You know, it's like
he didn't get credit in America. It was foreign banks that were really.
Well, no, that was
the heavy lifting, but
that was after he ran through American credit. Okay.
Oh yeah,
that was
absolutely.
After.
Absolutely.
No, we made him. So I'm done. But I have to let you two go because I need these two lines. I love you, and thank you so much.
Love you too. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Attorney Hoffler? Yes, sir.
Good morning, Santita. How are you?
Great. Yes.
I just talked to Attorney Hoffler, and she was saying, I think
she's right here.
All we got confirmed. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, who do you have? Do you have Mr. Who do you have confirmed?
All three of them. Gerald Griggs, Gerald, Maria, and Keith. All of them are confirmed.
And Attorney Connolly.
And Attorney Connolly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Attorney Connolly.
Okay, you and I will open this up, and what we're going to try to do, Cosme, if you can take those bottom two lines so that we can at least get one or two callers through. So give us a little breath.
Yeah, I'll leave like the 2 open lines for callers.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna use 2 of the private lines.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna call Gerald Griggs on the other private line. I have Attorney Hoffler on the other private line.
Okay, fantastic. And then we can go up from there. Great. Thank you, Attorney Hoffler. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The South Side has shifted. Presidential Center
Ooh.
is a way of giving back.
We're going from 40 degrees to 90 degrees here in Atlanta.
Are you
Who knows
serious?
What's going on? Yeah, a couple days ago it was 40 degrees, and yesterday was almost 90. It was 80 something.
You know, I'm wearing dark clothes today. I mean, really dark. And I'm now about to just dive back into the mothballs and pull my clothes back out. It's just like, I feel like it took me because I have no help right now. It took me forever to get all these clothes put away. Forever.
Wow.
Oh. Ooh. Forever. So here we are. Who do we have back on? Do we have Attorney Connolly? And I need you to pronounce the names for, is it Attorney Maria Banjo?
Maria Banjo.
Okay.
Gerald Briggs. And Keith Lamar.
Okay. Great.
Attorney Connolly's on the line.
Okay, Attorney Connolly, how are you?
Good morning, Santita and panel. How are you?
Oh, well, you're part of the panel, honey. CK specifically said, we need to get Aaron. We need to get Aaron.
Good morning, CK.
How are you?
Oh, boy.
Good. I can't wait to hear your legal analysis on this important subject. My goodness.
Yeah. It's something. A lot of people have hated on it. It is heartbreaking. But
Try great tasting Ensure X protein with 30 grams of protein.
Attorney Bonjo's on the line.
it's just heartbreaking all around.
Is it Attorney Banjo?
Protein reported feeling more energy in just 2 weeks. For more information, including consumer
Okay, I can't.
Yes, Attorney Bonjo's on the line.
Attorney Banjo?
Yes.
Hi, Santita Jackson. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
So glad that you're with us today.
Good morning, Maria. How are you? Good morning.
My job to guide you through basic paperwork, offer you options that best
Okay.
fit the family.
And we've got Attorney Aaron
55
Connolly
seconds.
with you as well.
Okay. It's going to be a great panel.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be great.
Protect the legacy for future generations.
You know what? I want you to break down this Gabby Petito case at some point. This is the buck wildest, craziest thing I've ever seen. Now,
I have Keith Lamar on the other line.
Okay.
I'm gonna when we first get going, I'm gonna try getting Attorney Gerald Griggs up because
Okay.
I don't think I have enough time.
okay, no worries. No. We'll be fine.
It should only take like a minute or so.
We'll be
I'm
fine.
just
Don't
gonna-
worry
I'm
about
gonna
that.
do the intro right now.
Okay, thank you.
15 seconds.
Okay, stand by, everybody. Quiet, please.
The Tom Hartman radio program provides all the intelligence, information, and
Okay, and turn that down so we don't hear that. Okay, everybody, turn it down.
this is the Santita Jackson Show.
You got the power. You got the power. You got the power.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. I'm Santita Jackson. It's Wednesday, September 29th, 2021. It's a joy to be with you today on the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, WCPT, based here in Chicago at AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota and Minneapolis, St. Paul. I want you to meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. That's right, Dave Dowling up there in Canada. And Robert Williams, you got something to say about this R. Kelly case. And Carissa, my girl, and Janae. And Renee, I want you all to call in today. Don't just write on this chat, in this chat forum. We want to hear your voices as we've got this magnificent panel. Of course, it's Legal Q&A with CK every Wednesday on the Santita Jackson Show. We got a lot to talk about today with this R. Kelly case, and those cases are not done. We're going to hear more, and we're hearing a lot of different opinions, and we want to hear what the legal eagles have to say, but we want to hear what you have to say, because outside of the court, room, you had a lot of uh, R. Kelly supporters. There are a lot of thoughts about this, and so we want to hear because this arouses a lot of emotions, and we want to be respectful of them all. 773 763 WCPT. If you want to text me at that number, GWC Injury Lawyers gives you the opportunity to do that. But I want to hear your voices today. I want to hear your thoughts. I don't just want to read them. I think that's important. I love the fact that you all participate here. But please like and share, like and share, like and share. Let everybody know that we're having this conversation today. We hope to really give you more light than heat, or at least as much light as heat. How about that? In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 76 degrees, mostly sunny. Minneapolis, St. Paul, a high of 86 degrees. Wow, partly cloudy. The Dow closed down 569 points yesterday. My heart wouldn't be able to take that. The NASDAQ closed down 423 points. The S&P 500 closed down 90 points. The Twins were triumphant over the Tigers yesterday, 3-2, and White Sox, wow, bested the Reds 7-1, everybody. Democratic factions are splintering as party leaders are desperately trying to keep President Biden's legislative agenda alive. Some progressives are revolting, according to this CNN report, over Speaker Pelosi's plan to hold a vote tomorrow on a roughly $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill. Indeed, Senator Bernie Sanders has told House Democrats, of course, he was there in the House before he was in the Senate, vote down the bipartisan bill if reconciliation package is not secured. He said on Tuesday, I strongly urge my House colleagues to vote against the bipartisan infrastructure bill until Congress passes a strong reconciliation bill. Everybody, the fight is on. LeBron James has conceded that he has been vaccinated. He won't encourage other people to do it, but he said he's been vaccinated after a lot of thought, after some hesitancy. Now the Vatican is getting in on it. They're ordering all employees to get the vaccine or submit to testing. In the meantime, people are being fired. Houston Methodist, one of the largest hospitals in that part of the country, fired 153 workers. The North Carolina hospital system fired 175 workers. This is going to be a very, very interesting fight, everybody. And the Dallas Fed, well, guess what? Their president, the Dallas Federal Reserve Board, their president, Robert Kaplan, has had to retire early. Why? Because, well, controversy has swirled over the issue about disclosures after it was disclosed that he had been executing large dollar trades in big name companies such as Amazon, Apple, and Delta Airlines. The Wall Street Journal first reported this story. Wow, how did they do that? He's calling it a distraction. Other people are saying that actually you had a conflict of interest. 131 federal judges, according to the Wall Street Journal, broke the law by hearing cases where they had a financial interest, everybody. That's right. A Wall Street Journal investigation found that judges have improperly failed to disqualify themselves from 685 court cases around the nation since 2010. The jurists were appointed by everybody from LBJ to Donald Trump. Everybody's in on it, everybody. Let's talk about R. Kelly. Indeed, no one can argue that he is one of the most gifted um, musical talents that we've seen, certainly in this generation and in many others. I believe I can fly, so many wonderful things, but he clearly is a troubled young man. Clearly, he's a troubled young man, and we saw that in detail with this trial, and certainly with the other trials that are going to go forward. And so we want to talk about this today because many people feel that he got his comeuppance. Of course, much of this was spurred by the documentary that we saw was chilling over the past couple of years. But people have been talking about this for many, many years. And so he was convicted on all counts after decades of accusations of abuse. And so we want to talk about that today. What do you think about it? Many people are saying that he is being unfairly vilified. He had some supporters, even with all of this testimony. He had supporters outside of the courtroom who were saying that he needs to get a fair hearing. You had House Democrat Danny Davis, who said that he needs the opportunity to be redeemed. To be fair to Congressman Davis, he is one of our elders. I think he was speaking from the biblical perspective, but of course he had to come back and say, wait a minute, I do support the women. I support women who have been abused. So let's talk about this, everybody. Let's talk about this. Do you think he got a fair trial? Do you think that this was high time that this happened? Wow. You tell me. What do you think, everybody? Well, I had to go to some people smarter than I. Indeed, on court TV and all over the media, our own C.K. Hoffler. That's right. Legal Q&A with C.K. has been leading the way, giving brilliant insight and analysis into this case. And so, legal Q&A with CK. First of all, CK, can you give us a synopsis of this case?
Absolutely. Good morning, Santita. And I need to say, just right off the bat, that, we're going to have people who feel very, very strongly about this case, about the outcome, about R. Kelly on both sides. And R. Kelly, just like anyone else who is in the system, who has been indicted, who's been tried, who's been convicted, has a right to an appeal, has a right to, when you are in the position he's been in and you're tried and your jury has spoken, you can appeal that. That's what our system of justice is. But the jury did speak. R. Kelly was brought up on charges of racketeering. We are accustomed to hearing about racketeering cases through like Al Capone and people who are involved in a criminal enterprise. When I say criminal enterprise, because that's the nature of it, in general, there's civil and there's criminal. But people who have been gangsters, who have done historically in this country. But there are racketeering statutes and laws that also allow people like R. Kelly to be prosecuted for, in this case, sex crimes, a pattern of practice that was so perceived and as presented by the prosecutors, heinous and endemic to his empire, that they felt they need to prosecute him under RICO, among other things. And he was convicted. He was convicted of those sex crimes. A jury listened to evidence for over 4.5 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. Heard from witness after witness, 46 witnesses for the prosecution and about 5 for the defense. They did not hear from R. Kelly himself, but what they heard was probably even more poignant than hearing from R. Kelly, which was they saw videos and they heard audio tapes with R. Kelly on them, engaged allegedly in some of the crimes he was being accused of. The defense did put up a strong defense. They cross-examined significantly the victims. There were 11 victims that testified, 9 women and 2 men. What's important to note is that for the most part, these victims were young folks. They were not of age, many of them, to consent when this pattern of sexual abuse and violence extorted against them, allegedly by R. Kelly, happened. So the jury heard the evidence. There was, as I said, a very, very rigorous defense that was presented as well. They deliberated for about 9 hours, and they rendered a very significant verdict against R. Kelly. And those are the facts of the case. That's what happened in New York.
Well, who do you have on your panel today?
Well, I've got a great panel. I felt it important to assemble Santita for this discussion 4 extraordinary lawyers, starting with Gerald Griggs. Gerald Griggs is an attorney out of Atlanta, Georgia. He's well known in our community. He's, in leadership of the NAACP. He is a civil rights lawyer. He's a lawyer who fights for people on high level, very, very complex cases. And he represents a number of the accusers of victims of R. Kelly. And so he's been on, television internationally as well, talking about the case because he has represented them. I also have Maria Banjo. Maria Banjo is a former prosecutor who actually specialized in prosecuting sex crimes. She's also been a defense attorney. She's a civil rights attorney. She's a political guru, I would say, also social justice champion in this community in Atlanta. Keith Lamar, former president of the National Black Prosecutors Association. He's been a criminal defense attorney. He is a civil attorney as well, and he does personal injury work, but he's also been a prosecutor. He's been a defense attorney, all those areas. And then Aaron Connolly, who, of course, is one of your regulars here on the Santita Jackson Show, who is her insight on cases and political issues, I believe, is second to none.
Brilliant political organizer.
Today.
She's one of the top political organizers in the country. And so it's always, and tremendous activist and women's rights activist. So I'm so glad that you had Aaron be part of this panel, and because you all have been in panel together on so much. So let's have at it, CK.
Well, I wanted to, have Gerald just briefly set the table for us on this case historically and bring us up to the present just very quickly so that people can have a different perspective. And we understand people feel differently about this case, but I was going to call on Gerald Griggs, Attorney Gerald Griggs, to start the conversation. Gerald, what do you say in terms of setting the table for this discussion?
Thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity to be on the panel and to be on the platform. This has been a battle for such a very long time. For many of my clients, over 25 years, and then for the majority of the families since 2017 for the new survivors. So what I think people need to understand, and I understand there's a lot of discussion going on online, but 46 witnesses testified, 11 survivors, 6 of which were underage when the sexual contact that's now been proven happened. There was DNA, there was video, there was audio, there were testimony from people inside of Mr. Kelly's circle. And so the jury got to hear robust evidence of his predation for the last 35 years. And so I understand people's feelings, I understand people's opinions, but in a court of law, fact and evidence is what rules, and then the law. And Mr. Kelly was convicted of all counts. And so what I would say is the people that are worried about how this is going to affect his legacy, how this is going to affect anything other than the victims, need to take a moment and think about the survivors, women and men that had to live with this for a prolonged period of time, not being believed, being shamed, being abused, being threatened. And I just don't understand how people can't separate the law and the facts from their opinion. We sat through 4.5 weeks of testimony. Mr. Kelly had an opportunity to cross-examine. He had an opportunity to present evidence. The jury believed the strength of the evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. Mr. Kelly also has 3 other criminal matters that have to be resolved, including one in the Northern District of Illinois. We always believed that the Eastern District of New York case was strong, but the Northern District of Illinois case is even stronger, and it covers the first trial, which was a state court case where there's an allegation that Mr. Kelly obstructed by paying off witnesses. So we need to fully understand where we are in this historical moment. It's time to start listening to the voices of survivors and their lived experience and having our day in court. There's a lot of conjecture out there that Mr. Kelly was railroaded and this wasn't a fair hearing. It was a fair hearing. It was in federal court. He had his lawyers. He had all his constitutional rights. He acted upon his constitutional rights, and he was convicted. And so I appreciate this opportunity to speak on behalf of my clients, but also on behalf of the survivors, the victims. People talk about the Surviving R. Kelly documentary. That was the 3rd documentary. Women and men have been speaking out for decades and have not been listened to. It's time for us to start listening to them.
CK, who else do we have on the panel? We have Attorney Banjo. Attorney Banjo?
Yes, I'm here.
What is your take on
glad
this?
to be with you guys.
Okay.
Well, as Attorney Griggs has stated, for decades, for far too long, women survivors have not been believed, and specifically, Black women have not been believed. And so, instead of looking at this as an opportunity or a case that is trying to take down, railroad a Black man, we should certainly be looking at as a case that is finally getting accountability. Finally, Black women are being heard. And when that happens, when the wheels of justice are able to actually function, this is the result we get. And I think this is definitely a good day in American history where we're able to, find accountability for the survivors and really demonstrate that there is no one really above the law, whether you're the President of the United States or you're an international superstar. The law should be applied equally.
Attorney Hoffler? Oh, we can't hear her now. But you know what? We're going to close mate.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, now we can. Okay.
Okay, no, she's like muting her mic.
I will say this. I've talked a lot about how whether it's in a sexual crimes context or a medical negligence context or other civil type context, the voices of Black women a lot of times are not heard, are ignored when they're crying for pain. I've seen this in some of my cases where just, in many instances of medical negligence, when nurses said, well, I just thought she was being a drama queen. I didn't really believe her. She was just exaggerating. And somebody was crying out for help and died. And there was an underappreciation for cries of pain as if Black women should just be able to take the pain. So I do think that part of this narrative and part of how some people are looking at this narrative is the hearing, as Gerald said, of victims, but the hearing of Black women and Black men victims, young children who were victims, because some of the victims were underage, which meant that they didn't have the ability to consent to some of these sexual acts. That does not absolve if there were situations where the parents were pushing their children to R. Kelly, knowing his history, because this was kind of well known. I'm not saying that absolves other people in this enterprise. Please understand. I think a lot of people are protesting, saying, "Well, okay, he was sick. He did these things, but it wasn't just him." So, in a RICO case, it is a criminal enterprise. The criminality, if you will, was the violence and the sexual behaviors, heinous in many instances, against these victims. But there were a lot of people that facilitated this. But R. Kelly paid for it. R. Kelly benefited from it. R. Kelly's stardom was what brought all of this. It was all centered around R. Kelly, but he had for sure his handlers. And some of those people did testify. So I just want to give that perspective as well. The voice of Black women being heard on these issues, which is historic in and of itself, the voice of victims, but also there has been some shaming of the parent in the media. And when people say he didn't get a fair shake, I think also people are saying, well, it wasn't just R. Kelly. There were a lot of other people engaged in it.
Well,
So
because I have to tell you, one of the things that
concerns
concerns me is the ecosystem that supported this. Because we all know, my father has said this about fame: lights attract maggots and flies. It's so sad, but it's true. Everybody wants to get in on the fame game. I'm not here to shame or blame anybody. I certainly believe that when you've done wrong, you need to be held responsible. You need to be held accountable for that. But I think we've got to look at a whole ecosystem. That's what troubles me about the Gabby Petito case. No one's looking at Mr. Laundrie's parents and their apparent participation in something with this girl. And I think we've got to, as we really look toward creating a more perfect union, we've got to look toward that. But you know what? Let me bring on Renee. She called in as soon as we got on the air, Tony Hoffler, and she wants to jump in on this. Renee, what's on your mind today? And how is your grandbaby, Lysandra?
Well, thank you for asking about her. They're saying she may get out today.
Fabulous. God, praise God. Thank you.
Feeling better.
Well, I have 2 minutes before we go to break, but give her a big hug and kiss for us.
I will. When I first called in, I still have mixed feelings. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't listen to most of the trial, but I did see everything happening that led up to it that makes me sort of have a lot of concerns. Like, for example, I'm living in Chicago and hearing on the radio them soliciting women to come forward if R. Kelly ever did something to them. That's a problem, because it's not like all of these people had just been coming to the authorities saying, he molested me, he raped me. They started soliciting for it. And anytime the government solicits for somebody to come forth to come after somebody, I have an issue with that. I thought he was guilty during the first trial, but he was found not guilty, and he was let go. He's living like a superstar, rock star, and rock stars have groupies. They have women who willingly throw themselves at the stars, football stars, athletes, period, movie stars, political stars. They have women flocking to them, so it's not like he's going out trying to find women to come to him. And with some of the women who were at his mansion, they said that they weren't being held against their will.
But Renee
started saying that they were.
Renee, I'm up against a hard break. But you know what, Attorney Hoffler, I want you and the panel to engage Renee. Yeah. She represents a lot of people. I'm seeing this all over the chat line here. And Attorney Hoffler, Absolutely. This is legal Q&A with CK. I want you to take it away when we get back. I had to pick it up because we were trying to call you, CK. We couldn't find it. This is live radio, everybody. Anything can happen. But, Attorney Hoffler, I want you and the panel to engage Renee because I'm seeing so many comments along the lines of what she said. Renee, stay there. And everybody call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. We want to talk with you about the R. Kelly case. We have a stellar panel on legal Q&A with CK right here on the Santita Jackson Show. Okay. CK?
I'm here, Santita. I don't know how I was talking away. I had no idea y'all could not hear me.
Girl, I heard you way in the background. I said there's something going on. But you know what? I think, Renee, are you still there? Mm-hmm. Okay. CK, would you like to speak with her on the air, or do you want to talk with her now that we're on Facebook Live? Because I know you still have to speak with Attorney Griggs and Attorney Connolly.
Attorney Keith Lamar, also Attorney Keith Lamar.
I'm sorry.
I think I'd like to address, because she does reflect, I've been surfing, and a lot of people do feel the way she does. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people that feel justice was served, but there are a lot of people that have questions about this, just as Renee has expressed. And so I really appreciate Renee speaking up about this, because it is quite common. So I was going to ask if we could come back on the other side and address it, but I do think it would be good to engage with that, because online, especially in the Black and brown communities, there is some hesitancy, there is some reluctance when they do hear government soliciting people who have been victims of.
Well, and just so that you know,
do that too.
Cesar Barria is saying, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but R. Kelly, Bill Cosby, I'll bring it on the other side. Kobe Bryant, Tupac Shakur, Michael Jackson, Mike Tyson, Rick James are sexual perpetrators, and no A-list white celebrities. It's not just about the crime, but the unequal and unjust prosecution. That's it. I'm glad you're following the chat line too, because it's Renee's representatives. And we're only going to have until the top of the hour. But you know what, CK? This is when we'll have to take this to the nighttime. What do you think?
I agree.
And can I just hop in on this same conversation?
Absolutely.
Simply because I understand what Renee is saying, and I would have the same concerns with the Chicago Cook County case. Mm-hmm. That was a district attorney that did that. The federal agents were not soliciting anybody. And so I understand that many people did not actually watch the trial because it was not televised live. Mm-hmm. But if you were actually there and you heard from all 46 witnesses, many of which were not any of the ones that were solicited for the Cook County case, you'd have a completely different perspective. Many of these accusers have been trying to get the ear of law enforcement for 25 and 30 years. Mm-hmm. The newest survivors, many of them were reluctant to even talk to law enforcement. And so I understand that people saw the Surviving R. Kelly, which was the G-rated version of what happened, but have not seen the other two documentaries nor listened to every single day of the evidence. if you would go back and listen to every single day of the evidence, which the transcripts are available, you would see the level of predation. You know, I agree. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I've represented individuals, I believe, that were targeted by the government, that were innocent individuals. And, you know, but we also have to remember that in this era, Harvey Weinstein was prosecuted. Jeffrey Epstein was prosecuted.
45 seconds.
And Jeffrey Epstein actually committed suicide before he was convicted. With regard to Mr. Roberts,
well, hold that thought. Hold that thought. I'm coming in. I'm going to be coming in. No, dude, and I want you to. I want you all to say as much as you can because I have a hard out at 58. Okay, CK. So we'll have to wrap this up at 57, but we are going to do this again. Just so that you know, I'm not trying to block anyone, but I want you all to talk, and I want to get in some of these callers, and I want to respond to what we're seeing on this chat line, Attorney Griggs. And thank you all for being with us today.
5 seconds.
And I'm glad that you're able to speak to all of this. Ooh.
Santita, when you come back up, I think if we could have Gerald and Keith Lamar.
Absolutely. Look, that's. I'm passing it over to you. I'm just trying to bring in some of the callers to help you with that. Okay. Okay, stand by.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show, Wednesday, September 29th, 2021. I'm Santita Jackson. We're talking about R. Kelly on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. GWC and G Lawyers gives you the opportunity to text to that same number. Of course, this is Legal Q&A with CK on the Santita Jackson Show. And we have Renee here still, CK. So you take it away.
Absolutely. Renee, first of all, thank you so much for speaking and for raising these points. Your voice does reflect the way many people do feel. So I was going to ask attorneys Gerald Griggs and attorneys Keith Lamar to respond to the questions and the issues that you raised, because there is a lot of distrust of the federal government, because as African Americans, we have been victims of injustice indeed by the government. So, Attorney Griggs?
And if I could, as Attorney Griggs comes on, to contextualize, Renee is a regular listener of this show, and she's from Chicago. So when she was speaking of, what's happening with what's happened with, the solicitations for people who were involved in this case, it's out of that context of listening to Chicago radio because she is from here. Okay. So I'm sorry, Attorney Griggs.
Yes, and I understand that. And again, I appreciate Renee's question. And as I was saying during the break, I would have the same concerns as Renee has for the Cook County case. But there are other cases, which is why the Eastern District of New York case exists, the Northern District of Illinois exists, and the Minnesota case, where no prosecutor stood on national television and solicited victims. In fact, the victims went willingly to the federal authorities to detail what actually happened to them. And it was vetted. Homeland Security vetted it. The FBI vetted it. And there was an intense investigation. So I do understand people watch the documentary. They've watched what's happening in the media. But if they'd watched the 4.5-week trial, listen to the 46 witnesses, listen to the audio and video evidence, the forensic evidence, the enablers who testified, and even in the public sphere, some of the family members who've come forward from Mr. Kelly's camp, you would understand that this was not an attempt to railroad anybody or a witch hunt for anybody. Now, I've been a criminal defense attorney for a long time. I've represented individuals who I felt the system was railroaded. This was not that. And so I think that we still have to listen to the voices of the victims. I do understand people want to label them groupies. They want to label them, people that deserve this. They're not that type of person, especially the 6 that were underage. Under law, you cannot consent to any type of sexual act when you're underage. So I think we need to step back a little bit. We need to realize that in this particular case, there was a mountain of evidence. It wasn't a he said, she said. It was the evidence says, it was the forensic said, it was the videotapes and the audio tapes said, it was his enabler said, it was so much evidence in this particular case. So I understand that question and that concern. I would just strongly advise people to go to the transcripts. Hopefully the next trial will be televised. It was a federal court case during COVID, so it wasn't televised. You didn't get to see the emotion. You didn't get to feel the witnesses. But I think the next three will be televised, and there will be no doubt it will be proven again beyond a reasonable doubt.
CJ?
Well, and so Keith, what is your take on this? I mean, you've been president of the National Black Prosecutors Association. You've been a criminal defense lawyer, civil trial lawyer. What's your take on this?
And thank you so much for having me on. I wanted to first talk about Mr. Griggs, Attorney Griggs. So back in 2019, we threw a national conference for prosecutors, and he actually was one of the only defense attorneys that was invited to talk about this case. And he had some people there that have been victimized from Mr. Kelly. And so this has been going on for a long time. This is an overnight affair. I think for some of the people that doubt it, one thing you got to think about is this. It's hard to believe a hero could do something that's wrong. So if you think about a parent or a hero or some kind of person that we all idolize and look up to, when that is taken down, you see who they truly are. Sometimes that shock doesn't come right into you. And I think that's what's happening right now with some of the community members. The evidence is overwhelming that Mr. Kelly is out of control. We've made jokes about it on the Boondocks. You know, we've had jokes about it on the Chappelle Show. You think about all the things. We know this as a people that Robert Kelly was out of control. So the fact that now he's getting convicted and you're acting shocked is surprising, but at the same time, I can see why that you look at this guy as a hero. But honestly, the facts are there. Think about the victims. Think about how many other people that we just saved being victimized. Because at this point, he wasn't going to stop. He was teetering the line already, and he kept crossing the line over and over again. And I think we all know that. So we can't just sit here and say, hey, he's a great artist. He can do all this. He can sing. It doesn't matter. You can't go out here and do this, especially with children. Because children are our future, right? So if he's going out here and he's deciding to rape and pillage our future, that's what we're going to have in the future. We don't need that. So, it sucks that he's, decided to do this, but this is his own decision. He created this whole thing happening. He could have prevented this. So, don't blame anybody else but Mr. Kelly for this, because you can say no. You have to be able to control your urges. And he clearly wasn't. It's overwhelming evidence. It's all on video. So I'm not sure why people are still acting this way. I hope they eventually calm down and realize that you know better than the rioters on January 6th, and you think that just coming in and no matter what the facts say, you're going to do what you want to do, it's going to change the issue. It's not. So I'm hoping that they understand this and stop victimizing the victims again.
I think it's important to really highlight the fact that predators seek out particular victims for a reason, whether it's sex workers, whether it's children, whether it's quote-unquote people they're going to brand as groupies. Why? Because society has already deemed them untrustworthy, has already judged them for either their profession, the way they look, who they are. And when a predator is able to identify a victim who society refuses to believe and trust, then they're able to continue perpetrating and doing their crimes against the victims. And so it is no surprise that people are looking at the background of victims to now justify or make it okay what Mr. R. Kelly did, or really discount the voices of these victims. And another thing to note is that predators have a pattern, whether it's decade 1, decade 2, decade 3, okay? And it's not, you don't have a whole bunch of men out there committing these crimes. It's a select few who have a pattern and are able to continue doing what they're doing, one, because of the industry that they're in and because of society allows it. And until the Me Too movement, it was very difficult for women to obtain justice and accountability in America.
Let me ask Aaron Connolly.
Yes.
I know, Aaron, you've been listening and you followed this trial. What are your thoughts?
Well, I've been listening in all honesty because I come at this subject as a survivor of assault myself. And I want to be very measured in how I speak to the panel today because it's personal to me. And I'm very lucky that I've been able to receive therapy and help and work through a lot of these issues. My concern with these survivors, they are victims, but they're also survivors, because a lot of people that suffer this type of crime do not survive, cannot stand up on trial. They are already gone. They've already left this planet. They've already left us. They go into drugs. They go into alcohol, and their life spirals out of control for the exact reason that was just brought up. A lot of times, especially even in situations where children are recruited into heinous acts and situations like this, they're able to be recruited because their parents, caregivers, family members have left them vulnerable and open to this type of assault, right? So I think we have to look at the aggregate, the whole big picture of trauma that this enterprise has put on Black and brown women in Chicago mostly, but throughout the country, and see the ripple effects of that. And that trauma is compounded, right? Think about if this happened to you and standing up and using your voice. While there is power in that, there is also something very deep and guilty and shame that comes up when you're speaking about these things. So I am just in awe of the women, those attorneys and caregivers who supported these women and men through this trial, through this process. And my prayer is that they are receiving the support and the care and the therapy they need to come out of this and live healthy and fruitful lives. So especially when you're taking something like this from a child, there is not a mental capacity to consent to these sexual acts or really understand what's happening to you. And that's why those laws exist with regard to statutory rape and consent at certain age levels. Your brain is not fully developed to understand. You may still believe at the time when you're a child that this is good attention you're receiving from a rock star. Your family is supportive of the relationship, so you feel conflicted about this, right? So there's so many psychological nuances that go on in the manipulation and predatory behavior exhibited by R. Kelly and his team. And I think we need to be always open for rehabilitation and redemption for people, but we cannot do that unless we say these crimes were committed, they happened, here is the evidence to show it, and there needs to be atonement, whether that's with jail time, fines, making sure that these victims are compensated and they can live their lives, but there has to be atonement, and there cannot be that without open accountability. And I am just pleased that these victims and survivors now have justice, and they don't have to go about their lives living in shame like it never happened, right? I think that is what so many women and men, but mostly women, we've seen in this Me Too movement, which is really just a few years old if we think about it, right? The Brett Kavanaugh trial was hearing for his confirmation was just 3 years ago. And many women had things come up during that time. So we're just seeing a grand reckoning for systems and people in power that perpetuate this type of abuse. And I think it's important to take into account the greater impact on our society. People don't just decide to become drug addicts. There's usually some trauma behind that. So we need to look at the impact of crimes like this and then understand that shining a light in this manner is an important first step to reconcile that healing and have people trust the system, right? Many women do not report these incidents when they occur. They don't even, sometimes their brain does not allow them to remember the reality of it for years later. And so the fact that these women and men have been able to come forward and see justice in their lives is truly amazing. And I think it's important to recognize the folks that are helping those people in this process.
Well, Erin, first of all, thank you for sharing your truth as a survivor and for your comments. And I think one of the discussions that we're not hearing a lot, when people say, well, he was railroaded or he's a victim, he's been victimized. I will say that RICO, and that's why I started off the discussion talking a little bit about RICO. RICO cases are routinely very, very difficult to prove. So because the trial wasn't televised, but there were 46 witnesses, and the prosecution put this case together to prove one of the more difficult claims or cause of action that you can prove. That gives you a sense of the mountain of evidence. Is it true that the criminal justice system needs reform? That Black and brown people get the short end of the stick? Yes, that is true. But in this R. Kelly case, and I would just admit this for people who feel very strongly about being victims, we've all been victims on some level of the criminal justice system. But in this case, the mountain of evidence that where it was, and the jury spoke. The jury was sitting there looking at this evidence for 4.5 weeks, day in and day out, 7 men and 5 women in Brooklyn. And so I think that it's difficult to understand how compelling this evidence must have been, because RICO is one of the most difficult claims to prove, especially in this context. So I think, Santita, I don't know if there's some callers waiting.
We do. Let me get a couple of them in, because
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, of course. Yes, very quickly, please. Yes, of course.
Okay.
Oh, is this Renee?
Speaking of brain development,
Renee?
can you hear me?
Renee, hold on one moment.
Yes.
I want you to hold on, because let me get at least another caller, and I didn't realize you were still there. Chapeau, what's on your mind? Chapeau, are you there? Okay.
I ever connected.
I was on mute. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you so much for taking my call. I wanted to say that, I agree that R. Kelly is definitely a predator. We have seen him do this for a very, very long time. But my issue with this whole scenario is the selective prosecution of Black men. Because we see that Elvis did it, Jerry Lewis did it. We see that Hugh Hefner did it. And they, for years, how long was the Playboy? That was a place to be. The Playboy Mansion was a place to be. And he had underage kids in there every day. Everybody, the whole world knew it. And why didn't they bring a RICO case against him? And so my issue has always been selective prosecution. Yes, R. Kelly needs to go to jail for what he did. Everybody knew, but also the parents need to go to jail for soliciting their kids to this predator. And also everybody who worked for R. Kelly needs to go to jail. So if you're going to take them down, take them all down. But you cannot just select Black men and Black men to go down for these atrocities when you have white men who have been, what is the leader of the football team? He was raping women, taking them across state, and guess what they do? They let them go. So my issue is selective prosecution, and it's unfair to Black men to be only selected to go to jail. R. Kelly is going down for his life. I don't think he's going to get out of jail, but it should be a whole bunch of people right behind him, because he learned from the best. He learned from all the white folks out there that's been doing all this freaky stuff all these years, and ain't nobody did a thing. So you can't sit up here and demonize him and not demonize the rest of them. That's all I got to say, Santita.
Okay.
Well, Santita Chappelle makes a compelling point, and nobody is saying that anybody should get away. Anyone who engages in these acts should get away with it. No one is saying that. Should the criminal justice system be reformed? Absolutely. Are Black and brown people, Black men, disproportionately and negatively impacted? Without a question. Without a question. And that's a whole nother topic. But in looking at the evidence, like Chappelle said, and R. Kelly, I think justice was served. That's just my view. But I do respect other people's opinions. But the fact that there are people walking around and who have walked around from time immemorial in this country and elsewhere who have done the same or worse and have never been prosecuted or just were tried civilly or paid some money, that is a problem as well. And I think that is that's another discussion that should be had. So, Chappelle, thank you for your comments and thank you for raising that issue.
Let me bring up Chris very quickly so that you can close everything out with your panel. Chris, I got about a minute for you, sweetie. I'm sorry that I don't have more time.
Okay. Hey, hello, Santita. Good morning, panel. You guys are having an amazing talk, and I appreciate the legal insight. All I wanted to add to the discussion quickly was, as a musician in Chicago in the 2000s, in the late 90s and early 2000s, it was very well known across You can ask keyboard players, bassists, guitar players, singers across the city. Everyone knew what R. Kelly was about. You know, I love Touch the Dream, too. For me, that's my favorite song in R&B history, possibly. You know, you can step to it. It's a masterpiece. But guess what? I was in a studio in the early 2000s with a prominent Chicago pastor who was making his album with some of the finest musicians the city's ever seen, and I was lucky to be there. I was overachieving. And he turned to me, and the keyboard player said, "Hey, you want to see the new R. Kelly joint?" And he put on his computer the famous P tape that prompted his last case. The thing about R. Kelly that people need to realize is he was sexually assaulted and abused by his adolescent sister. And as we all know, people recreate their trauma. That's not to forgive what he's done, but this isn't, like, everyone in Chicago knew. So anyone who's acting like this is brand new or this is a surprise is a doggone liar. We all knew the deal. As a white suburban guitar player, I knew what R. Kelly was about way back in the early 2000s. Everyone knew the deal. He married Aaliyah. We all, you know, this is not new. So, like, we can empathize and sympathize with his condition. I'm not Sigmund Freud. We all know people recreate their own trauma. And R. Kelly's a genius, but he's also insane. And he is a sexual abuser mastermind. You know, he's been doing this for a minute. So respectfully to all callers and all people on the panel, I don't want to hear about, well, other people did it, because that's not what this is about. Like, that's the worst possible argument you can ever make in a situation like this, because it doesn't matter who did it. It doesn't matter who's been abusing children. If you abuse children, you are what you get. And it's a doggone shame. You wrote some great songs, but peace be with you. Sorry about you, man.
Wow. You know, I've got, CK, you're going to have about 30 seconds for each one of your panelists. But, you know, I invite them all to do, you know, our Let's Talk About It. We should talk about it in the evening. Okay, CK? I promise you we'll do that.
Okay, so Gerald, 30 seconds, your closing comments.
Yes, I just everybody for the opportunity to listen. Please, if you haven't, listen to all of the evidence, all 46 witnesses. And as a previous caller said, we all know this was nothing new. Boondocks, all of the P-tape, all of these things just kept escalating until we got to this point. And it's time for him to be punished. It's time to listen to the accusers and the survivors. It's time to lift them up and make sure they get the treatment and the justice they deserve.
Thank you. Maria?
Yes, thank you for inviting me. And what I will say, you know, to the little Black girls and boys and the women who are survivors, you know, to them it doesn't matter who else is being held accountable. All that matters is that their abuser is being accountable. And so I think people should look at this from a victim-centered approach instead of an offender-centered approach as far as who is being held accountable. Again, I appreciate you guys. Thank you. Happy to join.
Absolutely. Keith?
Thank you so much. Basically, at the end of the day, you all, I would like you all to understand that this guy, Mr. Robert Kelly, has been convicted. And at the end of the day, you cannot continue to fall back into that trap of saying, well, what about all these other people? We get it. And those other people, bring them forward, right? Bring those other people that you want to be prosecuted, bring them forward. But for right now, let's sit here and take a moment to acknowledge that Mr. Kelly is guilty. These victims have got a chance to at least try to take some type of closure to this chapter of their life. So please don't go out and try to not overlook the real fact. And the fact of the matter is that Mr. Robert Kelly was a predator and been proven so for decades.
Absolutely. Well, Santita?
Oh, I think we have Aaron.
Connolly.
That's right.
Aaron Connolly.
Well, thank you for this important and very difficult discussion. My hope is that anyone listening and is part of this conversation, if you need help and support as a survivor who has reported, hasn't reported, is just processing these issues in your own life, that you get help. I'm glad a caller brought up that R. Kelly himself was also traumatized as a child. Again, we all have to atone for our actions, and this is a criminal enterprise that was taking place in Chicagoland for many, many years with many, many victims, and there is justice today. My call is that our system, and thank you, Santita, for using your show as a beacon to highlight conversations that are difficult. But we do need more equity in our justice system to make sure every predator, famous, not famous, white, Black, is brought to justice, and those victims have a chance to live their lives. So thank you to all of the people on the panel who have made that possible for these survivors.
CK legal Q&A with CK. You got 1 minute.
Well, I just like to say thank you to all these panelists. You know, the bravery and the courage it takes when you've been a victim of sexual crime, and all the hate and the death threats that you get also have to be underscored. To the victims, this is a chance for you to turn over the leaf and hopefully bring some closure, because justice has been served in this case. And for those who are doing this, know that this is an example of what could happen when you are engaged in these types of heinous crimes against children and against young adults or people who should not be exposed to this or subjected to this.
And you know, I pledge we're going to continue. First of all, let me thank you, CK Legal Q&A with CK. We're going to have conversations like these, the tough ones, you know, on the Santita Jackson Show. But this is Legal Q&A with CK on the Santita Jackson Show every Wednesday. And you'll be calling in with your questions and with your thoughts. And we're going to have an extension of this, CK. Because this is a conversation that has stirred up a lot of emotions, and not just emotions, a lot of experiences that people have had all the way around. And you've pulled together this stellar group of legal minds, and we have a lot of people who've had a lot of experiences out here. We want to give everybody the platform so that you can have your say, and so that we can make sense of this. I do hope that as R. Kelly or anyone who traumatizes and who's been traumatized like this, I hope that they will also get some help. So we got to do that too. But we also need people to be held accountable for that which they do when they trespass against others. So it's a whole lot that we've got to do. And we've got to make the system fair so that Chaparral is heard and Renee, because that's real out here. Say, Saudi Borgia, I hear you. I'm hearing everybody. We're going to talk about that. And I'm back with more of the Santita Jackson Show. But tomorrow, I love you, everybody. God bless you. Legal Q&A with CK. Love you, girl. See you tomorrow. I wish we could talk more on Facebook Live, but we have someone who needs a studio now. And so, CK, I'm going to let you say goodbye to your panel.
Okay. Well, you know, Santita, this was great. It's a difficult topic.
Yeah.
So we can continue. Just let me know, and I'll send our team. It's a great panel.
Let's do it in the next couple of days. Maybe we should do it tomorrow because everybody's really stirred up about this, and we need to talk about this. We really, really do. Okay.
I agree, and I think we covered all sides of it in a way. I mean, it's a tough. There's no good way to cover this. There's really no good way.
No, it is a good way because what you do is you've given people. We need to know attorneys Griggs and Lamar and Bonjo and attorney Connolly, who so courageously came and gave us her own experience. And so it's all of this, and then we need to hear Renee. We need to hear Chaparral. We need to hear Cesare Borgia, because all these people are weighing in. They got a lot to say. They've got a lot to say. And you know what? I think we can juxtapose this, or at least we can take apart the Gabby Petito case, because it is becoming clear that his parents participated in this. I mean, something is real off here, and the police gave him space, and they gave the FBI gave him space. These parents, after the girl was missing, went camping with this young man. Are you serious? So there's a lot, but
there's a lot, and I think we need to unpackage that, and that's the bigger conversation about the need for reform in the criminal justice policing, all of that.
Look, don't worry about it. We're going to do it, but I'm going to let these people go. But hey, everybody loves legal Q&A with CK, and I do too. How about that?
Thank you, Santita. Love you, my dear.
I love you, girl. God bless you. Thank you, panel. You are fantastic, and I hope you'll come on my show that's not on CK's show one day. How about that?
Sure. Thank you, man. All day.
Okay, maybe I'll have to come back. As you can see, I got listeners. Oh gosh.
I just wanted to say to Aaron just a special thanks for sharing your truth. I had to catch my breath and fight back tears, but thank you for sharing that.
You know, we see why Aaron fights for everybody.
Yep.
It's always something that drives us. And I just thank God for Erin every day. Because she continues to do that, whether it's with whatever kind of trauma it is, because she is also living with diabetes every day that she has to fight. She has to fight through that every day. She is just my hero. She's a champ, and I love her. I love her, my dear sister. And thank all of you so much. And CK, I'm going to call you right now because we're going to work on getting this scheduled in the next day or so. Okay?
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Love you, everybody. Thank you, Cosme. God bless you. Be well.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.